Zoo time. It's she and you time. The mammals are your favourite type. You'd better want her tonight. Heartbeat, increasing heartbeat. You hear the thunder of stampeding rhinos, elephants and tacky tigers. This town ain't big enough for the both of us, and it ain't me who's gonna leave. Flying, domestic flying, and when the stewardess is near, do not show any fear. Heartbeat, increasing heartbeat. You are a khaki-coloured bombardier. It's Hiroshima that you're nearing. This town ain't big enough for the both of us. Daily, except for Sunday, you dawdle into the cafe, where you meet her each day. Heartbeat, increasing heartbeat. As 20 cannibals have hold of you, they need their protein just like you do. This town ain't big enough for the both of us. Welcome, VC, to part 2 of my great lyricists of rock. I'm going to be doing another 10 today, and going to be doing it slightly differently in that I'm going to be reading out the lyrics and seeing if people can work out which song they're from. Because one or two people who commented on my last lyrics video said that they didn't really listen to the lyrics, don't recognise lyrics very easily. So I thought I'd make it challenging for those people if they're watching. Did you get that first one? It was, of course, the wonderful Sparks and This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us, written by, now I believe the lyrics are written by Ron Mayle, and maybe even the music as well, but I mean, he's a very distinctive lyricist, isn't he? He's got a very surreal take on things, and the music of Sparks is a kind of perfect fit, really, for the words, a kind of slightly hysterical thing that they've got going. He's written so many fantastic songs, Ron Mayle, and the words are always funny, always worth listening to. There is actually a song by Sparks called Funny Face, if Jason is watching, and the words of that song appear to be just about some guy who's got a bit of a funny face. It's a very, very funny song. But anyway, yeah, Ron Mayle and Sparks and This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us. Brilliant. Okay, next one. Are we ready? This is the song. Short people got no reason. Short people got no reason. Short people got no reason to live. They got little hands, little eyes. They walk around telling great big lies. They got little noses and tiny little teeth. They wear platform shoes on their nasty little feet. Well, did you get it? Randy Newman. I couldn't find the album which that song is from. I have it here somewhere. I couldn't find it. It's from the Little Criminals album. This is The Good Old Boys. Randy Newman doesn't get mentioned very much on the BC, but I really like him. He's an extremely inventive songwriter, and that song it's amazing to think now that song Short People was badly misinterpreted back in the day. You know, people thought it was actually him having a pop at short people. They completely missed the satire of the song. Obviously it's a song which is meant to, you know, take the mickey out of people who have kind of arbitrary prejudices against, you know, certain kinds of people. And I think what's clever about Randy Newman's songwriting is that he basically inhabits characters. You know, he writes in the third person, as it were, so he will adopt a character or a particular perspective or point of view, and he will write a song in that character. So it's almost like reading a novel or a short story where you're asked to possibly identify with a narrator figure who isn't actually the author. And I think that's thrown people over the years. It's given people the wrong idea about him. And some people, when they hear the music, because the music is often quite soft, it's kind of soft rock, isn't it? And I think people who don't listen carefully to Randy Newman possibly miss the fact that he's got this very satirical thing going on. And Short People represents, I think, the kind of the purest expression of that. A very clever songwriter, and the thing is, he writes great tunes as well. He's a real kind of all-round. He should have been much bigger, I think, in his career. He went off and became a film composer. Obviously, you know, he did kind of Toy Story and so on. But, you know, really, really, really clever songwriter. That's Randy Newman. Okay, next. So we're going to come slightly more up to date now. I am aware with these records and things that I'm talking about is I'm not really talking about anybody too contemporary, and I'm really sorry about that. I'm trying to stick to things that I have in my vinyl collection. I'm quite aware that there are people, much more contemporary people than I'm showing, you know, who are really great lyric writers, but these are the ones that I pulled out. But this brings us slightly more up to date than the previous ones. See if you can get this. My beloved monster and me, we go everywhere together, wearing a raincoat that has 4 sleeves, gets us through all kinds of weather. She will always be the only thing that comes between me and the awful sting that comes from living in a world that's so damn mean. We are talking about the brilliant Mark Everett, or E as he is known, from Eels, a songwriter who rose to prominence in the 1990s, doing a kind of, I almost thought like a slightly more collegey version of Nirvana. He had that gravelly sound to his voice, he had the guitars, but his songs did angst, but in a different way to Kurt Cobain. You know, Kurt Cobain was all kind of screaming, full throttle, kind of almost out of control, really. Whereas Mark Everett's stuff was much more, it was introspective. It was, I mean, he wrote songs about things like, you know, being too afraid to go out and see people. Really kind of, you know, melancholy, introverted, touching on psychological problems. Anybody who doesn't know the story of Marquis Smith, absolutely amazing story. He wrote his autobiography, which is worth checking out. I have it here somewhere on the shelf. I'll have to dig it out. But certainly this album, Beautiful Freak, their first album, and still possibly his finest work. A very distinctive songwriter, great lyricist, and of course he does all the tunes himself as well. He's a bit of a one-man machine, a one-man songwriting machine. Mark Everett and Eels. Okay, a change of tack now. So far, it's all been men, so I'm going to change with this one. This is my favourite song by this particular person. Welcome to the human race, with its wars, disease and brutality. You, with your innocence and grace, restore some pride and dignity to a world in decline. Welcome to a special place, in a heart of stone that's cold and grey. You with your angel face, keep the despair at bay, send it away, and show me the meaning of the word. Beautiful stuff, set to an amazing melody. That is the song Show Me by Chrissie Hynde and the Pretenders. What more needs to be said? Chrissie Hynde, she was there in the pop charts when I was in school, when I was 10 years old, 11 years old. Here I am now at the age of 45 and she's still going strong. The Pretenders have just released a new album, or a new single at least, I believe. I heard it on the radio the other day. Great songwriter. Yeah, Chrissie Hynde. What more can you say? Fantastic. Okay, next one. This one is, you know, I was thinking about my previous video and what I said. I said that a great lyric works because you can read it off the page. You don't necessarily have to hear the music. I'm going to qualify that this week because I think often lyrics, really good lyrics, they work well because they are lyrics. That is to say, they work well set to music. They don't necessarily have to read great on the page. It's just what happens when they're sung. That's the trick, isn't it? You know, even a song like just a really simple song like I Saw Her Standing There. If you read that off the page, it doesn't mean that much. But as soon as you hear it, she was just 17. You know what I mean. You know, it's not Shakespeare, is it? But it works. You know, that's the trick to a great lyric. It just works. Now, this person, on the other hand, a bit like Leonard Cohen and Lou Reed, has been considered an actual proper poet, or at least he considered himself to be one, which not all lyricists are. You know, some people, they just write songs words set to music, and some people consciously think of themselves as writing poetry, and this is one of those people, and he's quite controversial for that reason, because I think some people accuse him of being pretentious. You'll get this one straight away. Don't you love her madly? Don't you love her madly? Don't you love her ways? Tell me what you say. Don't you love her madly? Wanna be her daddy? Don't you love her face? Don't you love her as she's walking out the door, like she did 1,000 times before? No prizes. Jim Morrison. That is surely one of the greatest lines ever in a song. Don't you love her as she's walking out the door? It's just so kind of bleak and final, isn't it? Yeah, Jim Morrison. You could say that some of his work is pretentious. That lyric, I think, demonstrated that he could do very simple stuff that really kind of pulled at the emotions, you know. And I think it's one of his best songs for that reason. It doesn't seem to be one where he's trying too hard to be a poet. He's just writing words which sound good set to the music, that have an attitude and a certain kind of perspective, quite a bleak perspective actually. And fundamentally, I will disagree with anybody who says that Jim Morrison was crap, because, you know, he clearly wasn't. He was great, I think, in my opinion. Jim Morrison from The Doors. This is an amazing reissue that I got earlier this year of LA Woman, which sounds great, sounds absolutely fantastic. It's one of those records that makes the hair on the back of your neck go up. If my voice sounds a bit today, it's because I've got a cold. I've got a nasty cold today. Next one. I come awake with a gift for womankind. You're still asleep, but the gift don't seem to mind. Rise on this occasion, halfway up your back, sliding down your body, touching your behind. You come awake in a horny morning mood, and have a proper wriggle in the naughty naked nude. Roll against my body, get me where you want me. What happens next is private. It's also very rude. We are talking about the inimitable, hard word to say, Ian Dury. I forgot to mention, in the comments on the previous instalment of this video, I had some really nice suggestions from people, and I think it was Headley, another fat bearded man showing records, who mentioned Ian Dury, and as soon as he said that, I was kind of like, of course, how could I have forgotten? To be honest with you, I left out a lot of extremely great people in that first video, because I was just basically choosing people, the first people I thought of, and I compiled the list, and I missed certain individuals. This guy, just an absolute genius of English pop song, great grasp of the vernacular, you know, being able to write songs that follow the patterns of everyday speech, and he was a master at using the fact that he had a certain kind of voice and a certain kind of accent, I think. And again, that goes back to what I was saying before. They don't have to read great off the page, but they have to sound great sung, and Ian Dury was a master of that. Ian Dury, one of the great songwriters of all time. Okay. Now this next one takes us way back into prehistory, and I kind of wish I'd done this person first, because in many ways he is the king, absolute poet laureate of rock lyric writers, without whom arguably, you know, we might not even have Bob Dylan. Deep down Louisiana, close to New Orleans, way back up in the woods among the evergreens, there stood a log cabin made of earth and wood, where lived a country boy named Johnny B. Good, who never ever learned to read or write so well, but he could play the guitar just like ringing a bell. The timeless genius of Chuck Berry pretty much invented guitar-based rock with that electric guitar of his. He pinched his riffs from elsewhere, from older music, you know, but his lyric writing, I think, was his true original contribution to popular music. That was his main contribution, I think, was writing words that really meant something. It wasn't just sort of, hey baby, I love you. He was a master at introducing things around him, you know, in the world in which he moved. You know, he wrote about certain makes of car, and he was always writing about just sort of normal everyday objects. But of course, to English people, they weren't everyday objects. They were sort of impossibly glamorous objects, you know, Cadillacs and sort of cars that British people had never seen before. And he created a world that was very, very exotic, but at the same time quite kind of normal. And he was just a great master at playing with language. You know, I mean, my favourite line of his is when he writes about, as I came motivating over the hill. Such a great line, you know. You got the pun on the idea of the car, you know, motivating, but also you get the sense that he is motivated. He's motivating over the hill. Incredibly original, really, really clever. You know, I've got just the utmost admiration for Chuck Berry as one of the all-time great lyric writers. Peerless. Okay. Next we have somebody possibly equally as great, although he came later. If you feel a bit under the weather, if you feel a little bit peeved, take Granny's standby potion for any old cough or wheeze. It's a cure for hepatitis, it's a cure for chronic insomnia, it's a cure for tonsillitis and for water on the knee. Tea in the morning, tea in the evening, tea at supper time. You get tea when it's raining, tea when it's snowing, tea when the weather's fine. You get tea as a midday stimulant, you get tea with your afternoon tea. For any old ailment or disease, for Christ's sake, have a cup of tea. If Chuck Berry was able to write about 1950s America so brilliantly, this guy wrote about, I suppose, 1960s England equally brilliantly. Ray Davies, from the Kinks. You could almost say he's up there with Dylan, I'd say. You know, a phenomenal observer of people and places, just a great writer. You know, he could easily have been a great novelist in another lifetime, a bit like Dylan. And that song, there's no other songwriter in British popular song who would make a reference to water on the knee in a song. You know, classic Ray Davies. It just makes you laugh. But of course, there's that undercurrent, a bit like Mark Everett, who I called Marquis Smith earlier. I'm aware of that. A bit like Mark Everett, there's this constant undertow of almost mental illness, really. I mean, Ray Davies did suffer with mental illness, but certainly that kind of angsty feeling. There's the humour, but it's kind of black humour. And that song, Have a Cup of Tea, is from this one of their best albums, I think, Muswell Hillbillies. Also one of the greatest album covers of all time. Okay, we're getting towards the end. She wanted to test her husband. She knew exactly what to do. A pseudonym to fool him. She couldn't have made a worse move. She sent him scented letters and he received them with a strange delight, just like his wife. But how she was before the tears, and how she was before the years flew by, and how she was when she was beautiful. The beautiful, poignant poetry, lyrics of the amazing, truly amazing Kate Bush. That was her song, Babushka, often praised for her amazing musical arrangements and productions, quite rightly so, but also just her words and the way she melds the words with the music. That's one of her most beautiful songs, I think, shot through with a kind of sadness, a romantic yearning and sadness, which sums up a lot of her work. You know, think Wuthering Heights. That is Kate Bush. And we're going to finish with somebody that I can't quite believe I missed them out of the first video, but I did miss out on quite a few people. This one is so good, I'm actually going to do the lyric in its entirety, and I'm sure you will recognise it straight away. Frankly, Mr. Shankly, this position I've held, it pays my way and it corrodes my soul. I want to leave, you will not miss me, I want to go down in musical history. Frankly, Mr. Shankly, I'm a sickening wreck. I've got the 21st century breathing down my neck. I must move fast, you understand me. I want to go down in celluloid history, Mr. Shankly. Fame, fame, fatal fame, it can play hideous tricks on the brain. But still I'd rather be famous than righteous or holy. Any day, any day, any day. But sometimes I'd feel more fulfilled making Christmas cards with the mentally ill. I want to live and I want to love. I want to catch something that I might be ashamed of. Frankly, Mr. Shankly, this position I've held, it pays my way and it corrodes my soul. Oh, I didn't realise that you wrote poetry. I didn't realise you wrote such bloody awful poetry, Mr. Shankly. I'm not kidding, I've actually got goosebumps all over my body just reading that. His Mosness, of course, Morrissey. And it struck me while reading that how similar in spirit that is to the Kinks. Didn't you think? I can't think which bit it was now. I've got the 21st century breathing down my neck. It's pure Ray Davies, that is. It's the outsider's point of view, isn't it? It's that slightly alienated perspective on things. Morrissey did Alienation like nobody else, you know, that kind of feeling of being all alone and having your particular take on the world, which nobody else has. And you know, taking it to extremes where you end up feeling unpopular and antisocial, a bit like Mark Everett again, a bit like Ray Davies. But I mean, certainly, you know, I think you'd have to argue, you know, if you're talking about Dylan, you're talking about Leonard Cohen, you're talking about Ray Davies, and really, I think you'd have to put Morrissey up there for being a true original voice in popular song. There will be a third and probably final instalment coming at you maybe next week, but I've just really enjoyed doing this series, so I hope you've enjoyed it too. I know some people are not into lyrics, and quite possibly you haven't, if so, people haven't watched this second video, but I just thought for the people who do enjoy that kind of thing, it might be good fun just to continue it a bit longer. So anyway, I shall just leave you with just a quick news update on Bob Dylan. Apparently he has still to accept or even acknowledge the Nobel the Nobel Prize that he has won, and people are starting to get a little bit annoyed now. So we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens. I kind of admire him. I was chuffed that he'd won it. I was really impressed that he'd won it, but now that he's refused to acknowledge it, I kind of think maybe it wasn't the right thing after all. I don't feel that he's done a bad thing in a way. It's just classic Dylan, isn't it? He just refuses to play ball, and that's what he's always done. I think he's always been wary of being an establishment figure, and perhaps that's why he's refused to come forward and acknowledge this amazing, prestigious prize. I just think it's priceless. Anyway, VC, I hope you have a great weekend. I need to crack on now and do some more boring things, I'm afraid. Take care. Bye.